Welcome to Hockey Wiz Talks podcast. Today I'll be talking about my observations about the first round matchups in the 2023 NHL playoffs. In this podcast, I talk about some of the observations I've made so far during the first round matchups in the NHL quarterfinals. Eastern Conference matchups. Boston Bruins versus Florida Panthers. The Boston Bruins lead the Florida Panthers in their best of 7 series 2-1. The big guns came to play in Game 1 for Boston, as David Pastrnak and Brad Marchand both had a goal, while Tyler Bertuzzi had 2 assists in the victory. Florida blew out Boston 6-3 in Game 2. Brandon Montour scored twice, while goalie Alex Lyon made 34 saves for Florida. In Game 3, Taylor Hall had a monster game, coming up with a goal and an assist for Boston in a 4-2 win to put the Bruins up 2-1 in the series. The leading point scorers for Boston is Tyler Bertuzzi and Dmitry Orlov, who both have 4 points apiece. The leading goal scorers for Boston are David Pastrnak, Brad Marchand, and Taylor Hall, who have 2 points apiece. Matthew Tkachuk leads Florida in points with 3 points, and Brandon Montour has 2 goals to lead Florida in goals. Linus Ullmark is 2-1 with a 2.69 GAA and .913 save percentage, whereas Alex Lyon for Florida is 1-2 with a 3.26 GAA and a .902 save percentage. The Boston Bruins have been relying on their depth scoring in the playoffs rather than just Pastrnak and Marchand. Patrice Bergeron has yet to play a game in this series, but the Bruins seem to be doing fine without their captain and number 1 center. The trade deadline acquisitions of Tyler Bertuzzi and Dmitry Orlov have paid dividends already, as both have chipped in offensively in the series. David Krejci was a late scratch prior to Game 3, but Boston's depth showed as they didn't miss a beat without Bergeron and Krejci. Led by Matthew Tkachuk, Florida is engaging Boston with physical play and don't seem like they are being bullied physically by Boston. Aaron Ekblad was injured in Game 3. It remains to be seen if he's healthy enough to play next game. If not, defensemen like Brandon Montour and Gustav Forsling will need to step up. Alex Lyon was pulled in Game 3 in favor of Sergei Bobrovsky. It remains to be seen who gets the start in net for Florida in Game 4. If Boston wants to win this series, Marchand, Pastrnak, and Taylor Hall have to lead the charge offensively. The defense has to play with purpose and structure, and Linus Ullmark has to play well. If Florida wants to win the series, Barkov and Tkachuk need to lead the charge offensively. They need to play with a physical edge, and whoever is in net has to play well. Carolina Hurricanes versus New York Islanders. The Carolina Hurricanes lead the New York Islanders in their best of 7 series 2-1. Carolina had 2 power play goals to defeat the Islanders in Game 1, while Ilya Sorokin made 35 saves in net in the loss for the Islanders. The Canes continue to be dominant on home ice to take a 2-0 lead in the series after winning Game 2 in overtime on a Jesper Fast game-winning goal. In a 2-0 hole, the Islanders blew out the Canes 5-1 in Game 3 behind the heroics of Kyle Palmieri to make the series 2-1. The leading point scorer for Carolina is Brent Burns with 4 points, and the leading goal scorer for Carolina is Stefan Noesen and Jesper Fast, who both have 2 goals apiece. The leading point scorer for the Islanders is Kyle Palmieri with 4 points, and the leading goal scorer for the Islanders is Kyle Palmieri with 2 goals. Carolina goalie Antti Raanta is 2-1 with a 2.60 GAA and a .909 save percentage, whereas Ilya Sorokin of the Islanders is 1-2 with a 2.29 GAA and a .942 save percentage. Carolina continues to be dominant on home ice in the playoffs, while they continue to struggle on the road. The bad news for Carolina is that already without Andrei Svechnikov and Max Pacioretty, they will also have to play without Teuvo Teravainen, who they lost in Game 2 and will be out indefinitely. With injuries to key players on Carolina, it opens the door for key players like Jack Drury and Stefan Noesen to step up and chip in offensively. The defense already had a hand in several goals scored this series for Carolina, and the D has to continue to chip in offensively. Because of the matchup, the Matt Barzal line has been pretty quiet in this series because they have been nullified by the Jordan Staal line. The Nelson and Cizikas lines have been the most consistent for the Islanders, but that is expected because they have been the most consistent lines all year long for the Islanders. Ilya Sorokin continues to be stellar for the Islanders, and despite being peppered by Carolina's shots, he has stood tall in net. He will need to continue to stand on his head to carry the team past the Hurricanes. If Carolina wants to win this series, they will need to play better on the road and get scoring from depth players. If the Islanders want to win this series, Sorokin needs to stand on his head, and they need to get scoring from other sources in the lineup. And now a word from our sponsor. Check out my scouting blog at HockeyWith777Scouting.com. Listen to my scouting blog podcast on podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/HockeyWith777Scouting. New Jersey Devils versus New York Rangers. New York Rangers lead the Devils in their best of 7 series 2-1. Chris Kreider scored twice on the power play, and Adam Fox had 4 assists to help the Rangers top the Devils in Game 1 to put the Rangers up 1-0 in this series. The Rangers cruised to a Game 2 victory behind a 3-point night from Patrick Kane and 2 goals on the power play from Chris Kreider. This put the Rangers up 2-0 going back to MSG. With their backs against the wall, New Jersey started rookie goalie Akira Schmid in net. He played stellar, making 35 saves in a 2-1 victory over the Rangers. Dougie Hamilton scored the game-winning goal in overtime to make this a series. The leading goal and point scorer for New Jersey is Jack Hughes, who has 2 goals and 2 points in this series. The leading point scorer for the Rangers is Adam Fox with 6, and the leading goal scorer for the Rangers is Chris Kreider with 5. Vitek Vanacek is 0-2 with a 4.52 GAA and a .827 save percentage. Akira Schmid is 1-0 with a 0.84 GAA and a .972 save percentage. Igor Shesterkin for the Rangers is 2-1 with a 1.26 GAA and a .950 save percentage. The New York Rangers are completely dismantling the Devils in every aspect of the game because the Rangers are a more experienced team in the playoffs. It has been apparent since the start of the series that the Devils are a very young team that is still trying to figure out how to play in the playoffs, whereas the Rangers have a team full of veterans that have been there before. New Jersey has been outplayed, outsmarted, and outcoached in this series by a wide margin, and it just seems like the Rangers have the Devils figured out. The Devils have strayed away from what made them a great team all year long, and that is playing with speed and pace. Even with a victory in Game 3, the Devils look disorganized and out of sorts at times. The Rangers' neutral zone defense has been stellar in shutting down New Jersey's speed coming through the neutral zone, and it has thrown the Devils off their game. New Jersey has to do more than changing line combinations or goaltenders if they want to win this series. The Devils need to get pucks by the defense, use their speed to generate speed in the O zone, get pucks to the point, get deflections with traffic in front, all that stuff that good teams will normally do in the playoffs. All the fancy stuff that you do in the regular season won't work, so you need to try to scrap for an ugly goal. The Rangers don't need to change anything. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. The only complaint is that sometimes they try to be too fancy. If the Devils want to win this series, they need to establish O-zone pressure, stay out of the box, and tighten D-zone coverage. If the Rangers want to win this series, they just need to continue playing the way they have the first 2 games. Toronto Maple Leafs versus Tampa Bay Lightning. Toronto Maple Leafs lead this best of 7 series 2-1. In Game 1, Tampa Bay Lightning scored 7 goals to defeat the Maple Leafs, but Victor Hedman got injured along with 2 other players. John Tavares scored a hat-trick in Game 2, and Morgan Rielly got 4 assists to help guide the Leafs to a 7-2 victory, tying the series at 1. Ryan O'Reilly played the hero of Game 3 as he recorded 3 points, including the game-tying goal with a minute to go in the third period, then assisting on Morgan Rielly's game-winning goal. The leading point scorer for Toronto is Mitch Marner with 8, and the leading goal scorer for Toronto is John Tavares with 3. The leading point scorer for Tampa Bay is Corey Perry with 4, and the leading goal scorer for Tampa Bay is Braden Point with 2. In this series, Ilya Samsonov is 2-1 with a 3.70 GAA and a .878 save percentage, whereas Andrei Vasilevsky is 1-2 with a 4.22 GAA and a .853 save percentage. This series is very intense. The rivalry has picked up, and each passing game, it seems like the heat between the 2 teams has escalated. Losing Victor Hedman and Eric Cernak due to injury in Game 1 was a huge loss for Tampa Bay, and it showed in their Game 2 loss. Nikita Kucherov and Braden Point are as advertised, and you can expect the same as the series goes on. Steven Stamkos has struggled thus far in this series, but you can expect Stamkos to bounce back. Corey Perry has found the fountain of youth again in the playoffs, and has been Tampa Bay's most effective player in this series. Braden Point was banged up in Game 3. This is very concerning for the Lightning because even though he came back from the injury, he won't be 100%. I would not worry about Andrei Vasilevsky. He has the track record of being able to bounce back from a poor start. This is a do-or-die series for Toronto. They cannot afford to lose in the first round again, because if they do, it will have disastrous repercussions. The good news for Toronto is that both Mitch Marner and John Tavares came to play this series. They will need to continue to do so. Morgan Rielly had a terrible Game 1 and played well in Games 2 and 3. He will have to play more consistent. Ryan O'Reilly was Toronto's big trade deadline acquisition. This acquisition already paid off in a big way, as O'Reilly has already came up clutch numerous times. Ilya Samsonov was terrible in Game 1, not really tested much in Game 2, but was stellar in Game 3. It remains to be seen how he fares the rest of the series. If Toronto wants to win this series, their star players need to play like star players, and they need to stay out of the box. If Tampa Bay wants to win this series, Andrei Vasilevsky needs to be the big cat, and Tampa needs to wear out Toronto's deep below the goal line. Check out my hockey blog at hockeywithtalkshockey.blogspot.com. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram at hockeywith777. Western Conference matchups. Vegas Golden Knights versus Winnipeg Jets. The Vegas Golden Knights lead their best-of-7 series 2-1. Blake Wheeler found the fountain of youth to tally 1 goal and 2 assists in a stunning 5-1 victory in Game 1 over Vegas. Vegas bounced back to defeat Winnipeg in Game 2 as Mark Stone recorded 3 points in a 5-2 Vegas win to tie the series at 1. In Game 3, Vegas held a 4-2 lead in the third period, but Winnipeg stormed back to tie the game to force overtime, where Mike Amadio scored the game-winning goal in double overtime to put Vegas up in the series 2-1. The point-scoring leader for Vegas is William Karlsson, Mark Stone, Jack Eichel, and Chandler Stevenson. All those players have 4 points apiece. The goal-scoring leader is Jack Eichel with 3. The point-scoring leader for Winnipeg is Neil Pionk with 5, and the goal-scoring leader for Winnipeg is Adam Lowry with 4. In this series, Laurent Brossoit is 2-1 with a 2.97 GAA and a .897 save percentage in goal for Vegas. Connor Hellebuyck is 1-2 with a 3.25 GAA and a .894 save percentage in goal for Winnipeg. The Winnipeg Jets are not intimidated by the Vegas Golden Knights, who have the best record in the Western Conference during the regular season. Winnipeg is getting production from everyone in their lineup, but especially from their leaders like Blake Wheeler, Mark Scheifele, and Adam Lowry. Connor Hellebuyck played well in Games 1 and 2, but was so-so in Game 3. He needs to be more consistent in the net. Josh Morrissey left Game 3 due to injury. It would be a huge loss for Winnipeg if he misses any games. As expected, William Karlsson and Mark Stone have been the best players for Vegas. Jack Eichel started off slow, but he started to really look like Jack Eichel the last 2 games. Vegas needs their defense to chip in offensively. Laurent Brossoit played decent in goal, but how long can he keep this up? If Vegas wants to win this series, they need to play better in front of Brossoit and get scoring from role players. If Winnipeg is to win this series, Connor Hellebuyck has to play well, and they need to get depth scoring. Colorado Avalanche versus Seattle Kraken. The Colorado Avalanche lead this best-of-7 series 2-1. The Seattle Kraken shocked the world by winning Game 1 as former Avalanche goalie Philip Grubauer made 34 saves in the victory. Trailing 2-0 in Game 2, the Colorado Avalanche found their game to rally 3-2 and rallied to win the game 3-2. The superstar showed up for the Colorado Avalanche in Game 3 as Mikko Rantanen picked up 2 goals and an assist, while Nathan MacKinnon had 2 goals to help guide the Avalanche to a 6-4 win, which puts them up in the series 2-1. The point-scoring leader for Colorado is Mikko Rantanen, Devon Toews, and Arturi Lehkonen, who all have 4 points. And the goal-scoring leader for Colorado is Mikko Rantanen with 3. The point-scoring leader for Seattle is Justin Schultz, who has 4 points. The goal-scoring leader for Seattle is Jaden Schwartz with 2 goals. In this series, Alexander Georgiev is 2-1 with a 3.03 GAA and a .898 save percentage. For Seattle, Philip Grubauer is 1-2 with a 3.06 GAA and a .917 save percentage. The Seattle Kraken have not been pushed around in this series as many thought they would. Seattle held McKinnon and Rantanen to only 2 points combined the first 2 games in the series, but in Game 3, they both broke through and solved the Kraken. The Kraken are embracing the underdog mentality and are engaging the Avalanche physically. Seattle showcased their scoring depth. They had 6 players with 20 plus goals and 13 with 13 or more goals during the regular season, and that shows during the playoffs. Philip Grubauer was tremendous through the first 2 games, but he was solved in Game 3. In the first two games, star players for Colorado were very quiet, but they came alive in Game 3. They have to hope that they continue to stay hot the rest of the series. The Devon Toews and Cale Makar pairing has been good offensively, but defensively, they have been pretty subpar. They will need to play better defensively. Bowen Byram, Arturi Lehkonen, and Valeri Nichushkin have stepped up and chipped in offensively. Alexander Georgiev has been okay, but he can definitely play better. If Colorado wants to win this series, their star players need to show up, the D needs to be more active, and they need to force Seattle into making mistakes. If Seattle wants to win this series, they need to engage Colorado's stars physically, and Philip Grubauer has to play like they did the first two games. Listen to Hockey with Talks podcast on Podbean and Spotify. Dallas Stars versus Minnesota Wild. Minnesota Wild lead this best-of-7 series 2-1. Minnesota Wild took Game 1 in overtime 3-2 thanks to a Ryan Hartman game-winning goal. However, the story of Game 1 was the hit from Matt Dumba to the head of Dallas Stars forward Joe Pavelski, which knocked him out of the game and maybe for the series. With Marc-Andre Fleury in net for Minnesota, the Dallas Stars scored 7 goals to win Game 2 7-3. In Game 3, behind a 3-point game from Ryan Hartman and a 2-goal game from Matt Zuccarello, Minnesota won 5-1 to take a 2-1 series lead. The point scoring leader for Dallas is Roope Hintz and Miro Heiskanen, who both have 5 points apiece, and the goal scoring leader is Roope Hintz with 4. The point scoring leader for Minnesota is Ryan Hartman, Matt Zuccarello, and Gustav Nyquist, who all have 4 points apiece, and the goal scoring leader for Minnesota is Ryan Hartman with 2 goals. In this series, Jake Ottinger is 1-2 with a 2.87 GAA and a .898 save percentage. In goal for Dallas, Minnesota has played 2 of their goalies as expected. Philip Gustafsson is 2-0 with a 1.18 GAA and a .962 save percentage, whereas Marc-Andre Fleury is 0-1 with a 7.00 GAA and a .774 save percentage. The Dallas Stars are too reliant on their top scorers. Joe Pavelski is a major loss for the Stars, especially on the power play. If not for Jake Ottinger bailing them out all the time, the Dallas Stars would be blown out a lot more often, because the Dallas Stars defense is really loose. Miro Heiskanen and Roope Hintz have been stellar in this series, but Jason Robertson has not been as productive and is noticeably quiet in the postseason. Minnesota pretty much split goaltending duties in the regular season, but I think it's crystal clear at this point who is the better goalie. Philip Gustafsson outperformed Fleury in the regular season and continues to do so in the playoffs. Playoff Ryan Hartman is here, and he has been one of the best players on the ice for Minnesota. The Wild are also getting key contributions from key trade deadline acquisitions like Gustav Nyquist and Marcus Johansson. Without Joe Pavelski, this is a totally different series, and it could benefit Minnesota the longer the series goes. If Dallas is to win this series, Jake Ottinger needs to play like he did last postseason, and they need to get scoring from role players. If Minnesota is to win this series, they need to get contribution from key role players and good goaltending. Edmonton Oilers versus LA Kings. LA Kings lead this best-of-7 series 2-1. Anze Kopitar tied Game 1 at 3 on the power play with just 17 seconds left in the game. Then Adrian Kempe scored the game-winning goal in overtime to give the Kings a 1-0 lead in the series. In Game 2, Leon Draisaitl had a 3-point game, and Klim Kostin scored the go-ahead goal to tie the series at 1. Game 3 was full of controversy because on the Trevor Moore game-winning goal, the puck was played with an apparent high stick before the goal, which should have forced a stoppage. But Toronto and the NHL ruled it was inconclusive. Therefore, the goal was allowed to stand. The point-scoring leader for Edmonton is Leon Draisaitl with 6, and the goal-scoring leader for Edmonton is Leon Draisaitl with 3. The point-scoring leader for LA is Anze Kopitar with 5. The goal-scoring leader for LA is Adrian Kempe with 3. Stuart Skinner is 1-2 with a 2.80 GAA and a .900 save percentage. Jonas Korpisalo is 2-1 with a 2.53 GAA and a .931 save percentage in net for LA. The Edmonton Oilers have outshot the LA Kings in every game of this series, but Jonas Korpisalo has stood tall. Undisciplined penalties at the worst times have killed the Oilers in this series. Edmonton hasn't been able to generate many grade A scoring chances 5-on-5. This has to change if they want to win this series. LA has done a very good job of containing Connor McDavid. Obviously, you aren't going to completely shut down McDavid, but you can limit the damage. and I felt like LA and Danault in particular did a very good job of doing that. Both teams' power plays are operating at a very high efficiency. So for both teams, you need to play with an edge but not take dumb penalties because they will cost you. There has been a lot of talk about the inconsistency of officiating and favoritism towards the LA Kings, but to blame the refs for a loss is loser mentality. LA star players have outplayed Edmonton star players, plain and simple. But this series is far from over, with the star talent available to the Edmonton Oilers. If the Edmonton Oilers are to win this series, McDavid and Draisaitl need to be as advertised, with contribution from role players and defensemen. If LA is to win this series, they need to continue to match Danault against McDavid. Kopitar and Kempe have to continue their terrific play, and Korpisalo needs to stand tall in net. Check out my travel channel at youtube.com/@HockeyWizTravels. In my next podcast, I'll be previewing the second round